Shalom, 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 shalom. Hope all is well. I wanted to share a video this week instead of writing out a Devar Torah. Hard to write this out. I figured it'd be more meaningful if I shared it. So in this week's Torah portion, we have the episode of Joseph, of Yosef, being sold down to Egypt as a slave. Obviously, this needs lots of research and lots of exploration to understand how it could be that brothers would sell their brother as a slave. They originally wanted to kill him. That needs lots of exploration. But for us, the major lesson which the Jewish people at large learn from this experience, and it's brought out time after time throughout Jewish history. In fact, it's probably one of our major tenets of our faith and our trust in God, is something called hashgacha pratis. HP, higher power moments, or the idea that what meets the eye, right, what we see isn't the whole story. And we know that in theory, but it's really hard to put it into practice in the moment. So this episode over here of Yosef being sold down as a slave, his father understands it to be that actually, in fact, he was killed by a wild beast, and the brothers found the technicolor drink coat of Joseph covered in blood, which happened to be goat's blood, right? This really was, although in the moment, in that time, it felt horrible, and it was terrible, a terrible thing, but it really led to the redemption, or led to the experience of the Jewish nation going down to Egypt, which of course was an essential part of us, of the Jewish nation becoming the Jewish nation. But what was perceived to be something horrible was really the beginning of something really amazing, and it really was the way that God was sending forth the antidote before the illness, before the makkah that was going to take place. So this is a very important part of Judaism. We see this brought out throughout the book of Esther, really, where things that, while they're happening, they seem so horrible, but they're actually part of the redemption. Or we have this in our own lives. Things happen, and we're not sure why, and it's kind of a sign from Hashem sometimes. Sometimes we get to experience why it happened. Other times we don't. So this past week was one of the most amazing weeks of my life, really, that I could recall. My grandfather, as we mentioned last week, my grandpa Charlie, he passed away. And we drove down on Sunday to go to the funeral. And the snow started coming down at 10 o'clock, and it was a constant snow the entire day, during the entire funeral, through the procession. And then it was in the Catskills, so the snow just kept on coming. My grandfather's an amazing person, and I'm sure I'll share more about him. And maybe you look online, you can see more about my grandpa Charlie. Maybe I'll share his obituary. It was really just an unbelievable experience. The funeral, the honor, the respect given to him, the impact that he had on so many people of every single walk of life. And just to make it more special, or to make it more of a Grandpa Charlie experience, after the funeral, and we were getting ready to drive back, the plan was to drive back. I was going to bring my daughter, Shifra, going to bring her to Scranton that night. But the snow just kept on coming, and I had to drive from the Catskill Mountains into the Poconos to get to Scranton, Pennsylvania, traveling down Route 84. The snow was horrific, so I told my daughter, Shifra Nechama, I said, you know what, I think we're going to pull off. It's the safe thing to go to a hotel. And I went back and forth, because who likes to drive? Who likes to pull off and go to a hotel? But it was the right thing to do. So we pull off the hotel. We looked up online. We found the hotel, and we pull off the highway, and we're driving towards the hotel. And all of a sudden, my daughter, Shifra Nechama, goes, "Hey, that's it. That's the hotel." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Oh, that's where I stayed last night with Bubby and Zadie. Guess what? Bubby and Zadie are there already. They're staying there again a second night." I said, "No way. That seems to be like a sign. It's Simon Hashemayim. Here Hashem is controlling things that we should stay over at the hotel with my parents." So we didn't actually have to pay for a second hotel room, because my parents were there already. So we stayed with my parents, and I think for us it was really an important time to have together. That quiet time in the hotel really was something special that we needed. And I thought this was, to pull off the highway, take a hotel because of the snow. Let's just get to Scranton. And Hashem said, no, you need this time together. But to top it all off, the next morning, we go downstairs for the continental breakfast at the Best Western. And I'm eating breakfast, and I hear from behind me, and someone says, "Shalom, shalom aleichem, how are you?" And I said, "Oh boy, what's going to be now? What's happening now?" I turn around, and there's a fellow there. He's wearing a shirt with Hebrew on it, and he tells me his name. I didn't ask him permission to say his name, so he tells me his name, and he tells me that him, his wife, and his 2 kids were in a car accident the day before, and they can't get a hold of any rental cars, and they have no car services, and their car's totaled, and they want to be able to go ahead and trying to get to Baltimore. So I said, look, I can't really take you to Baltimore, but if you want, I'm happy to drive you to Scranton to the airport, and you probably could find a rental car there, a one-way rental car. He says, okay, well, that's interesting, but, I guess maybe that will work. And my mom overhears this, and my mom says, Baltimore? Oh, okay, great. You know what? How about this? My son doesn't have room for your luggage, but why don't you put your luggage, all your suitcases, into our car, in our trunk, and you'll pick them up tomorrow when we go back to Baltimore. And he says, wow, that's amazing. He talks it over with his wife, and to make a long story short, him and his family get into my car with my daughter. We drive them to the Scranton airport to drop them off, and it turns out that he actually knows some of my friends from the rabbinic world. So this was another thing from Hashem. Hashem said, look, the snow's no good. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and make it that you have to stop at this hotel. It's the hotel where your parents are, so you get that special night with your parents. And it's also going to be that you're going to be able to help this guy and his family out. It's going to be so fantastic. So we always think that we know what's going on in life. We think we're in control. And this week's Torah portion opens up with that same idea where Yaakov or Jacob says, I just want to settle down and relax after all the crazy experiences that I've gone through, episodes that I've gone through over the past. And Hashem reminds Yaakov, that's not what life's about. Hashem is in control. Hashem's got it. And strange or challenging things happen very often in our lives. And that's part of our lives where we get to experience who we really are. We get to stretch our muscles and find out who we really are. And Hashem is really controlling things from up top. It's all under control. Hashem's got it. So these are things to keep in mind as we explore the Torah portion and as we go ahead and explore our lives and travel through life. And definitely this connects big time to Hanukkah, where we get to see the light, the miraculous hand. This was a miracle that was revealed miracle of Hanukkah, not like Purim where it was hidden. But let's make sure we appreciate the hidden miracles in our lives and appreciate those moments where we get to see the brightness, the bright oil that burnt for 8 days, that open miracle that Hashem does so often for us. So let's make sure we appreciate both those kinds of miracles and search for those miracles, because when we do that, life is going to be just amazing and filled with so much blessing, and we'll learn so much about ourselves and those around us, and we'll really get to see the hand of Hashem, and life will have so much more meaning. Have an amazing Shabbos, have an amazing Hanukkah, and I look forward to being in touch. I love to hear your thoughts on this, and hope you have a wonderful time exploring both the Torah portion of Vayeishev and exploring the Hanukkah holiday. Have an awesome one.